Let's talk to Sonya Molodina, who runs the Youth Etiquette course. Good afternoon, Sonya.
Good afternoon, Caroline. Such a pleasure and honour to be speaking to you. Thank you so much for having me.
Well, it's a pleasure, and thank you for coming on. Now, what kind of manners should we actually be expecting in a 9-year-old, Sonya?
Well, firstly, Caroline, I teach a whole range from 6 to 16-year-olds. And I think Amana actually gave covered a lot of the points in terms of first impressions, the fact that it may only take 3 to 6 seconds for someone to form an impression of you. So how you walk, how you talk, how you carry yourself, your posture, your deportment, it's all giving off subliminal messages. So these are delightful children that I teach. There's nothing lacking in their etiquette. It's about teaching them how to put their best foot forward and how to be the best versions of themselves. And also, I sort of cover a little bit about personal branding with them, which is a concept many 9-year-olds would have never even thought of before.
I'm going to confess, when I first started listening to that, because of course Lisa did that earlier, I was thinking, goodness gracious, has it come to this? But then, as you went through and as she explained more, you are very right. And I am guilty of this sometimes too. If only I paused for thought. I've learnt it now, I'm older. But if you pause for thought before saying the first thing that pops into your head, it can be a good thing in the long run, can't it? Before you kind of like launch in where angels fear to tread. And people do have that first impression, and that's really important, isn't it?
Yes, and I think etiquette is very much about respecting yourself and respecting other people. And I know often people think, people treat etiquette courses with a little bit of skepticism, and it sounds almost a little elitist, but I can assure you that when I'm teaching the children, it's all very practical, it's very modern, it's very relatable for children and their way of life. And I agree that actually the core foundation should be laid at home when parents are conversing with children, role modelling, for example, good table manners at the family meal. An etiquette course can only ever supplement what's being taught at home and perhaps come at it at an angle where parents won't have thought of before. So perhaps parents won't be talking to children about first impressions or what percentage of communication is non-verbal or personal branding. So yes, it's all about enhancing and being better versions of ourselves. And I think everyone could do with a bit of that, whether you're 6 or 16 or in your adulthood.
No, that is very true. And sometimes children can be quite dismissive of the wisdom of parents until they get a bit older, and then they think, oh, actually, maybe you were right about that, and they could take that advice perhaps better from somebody else.
Yes, and I think with children, they're navigating in a different world perhaps to what we did. At the moment, obviously it's quite a virtual world. And so one of the components of my course covers tech etiquette.
Now, do the children of today, do you think, if you look back to yesteryear and you look to today, do the children of today have better manners or worse than previous generations?
It's difficult to say. I think sort of when we were growing up, there wasn't as much focus on our social and emotional skills. I think our parents focused a lot on our academia and our extracurricular opportunities, but perhaps not so much grooming us to navigate through successful working and personal relationships. And I think these days children need that little bit of edge, perhaps, to get ahead and do well in their careers and life in general. And that's where I think actually perhaps it's not so much that children have changed, the world has changed. And we need to prepare children to be successful and to be comfortable within themselves in different situations.
Absolutely. So guide me through one of your courses, and can you really do this virtually? Over computer, because everybody seems to be doing that these days on Zoom calls and so on and so forth. So you can get the measure of somebody and teach them that way, can you?
Yes. Pre-COVID, I was offering face-to-face lessons. At the moment, because of the current climate, I'm doing it virtually, which has been absolutely fantastic because I'm working with children all over the country. And in fact, actually, the whole concepts of personal branding, things I'm talking to children about, for example, having good conversation skills, it works absolutely fine virtually. I mean, I'm talking to children about. So it's very interactive in the sense that I would ask children, what do you think are good topics of conversation and what do you think are not so good topics of conversation? And it might sound like common sense to us, but often, for example, a child might not know to say, well, actually, how much does your mum earn? Or lovely car, and how much was it? And to avoid controversial topics such as religion or politics and just to be aware about how they're coming across, not gossiping, not complaining, not using what I call put downs, which is like whatever, who cares, so what, So I think the contents are absolutely effective being delivered virtually.
Now, you talked about that some of these manners, some of this could be taught at home and you kind of like polish it up. Have you ever met a child that you couldn't do anything with?
Absolutely not. I mean, I would say most of the children that are coming on the course, their parents care about their social and emotional development, about them having good foundations, and they just want children to have that awareness, perhaps, of certain elements of how they're coming across that they may never have thought of before. And I think it's just that as much as we might sit together and have family meals together, increasingly during the COVID period, which has been a blessing, perhaps parents aren't going to talk to children about, the fact that 76 to 80% of your communication is non-verbal, or make sure you're deploying good posture, or that you're coming across well when you first meet somebody. I think those are not natural conversations at the dinner table that children could do with knowing and being aware about.
How do you deal with a child that is incredibly shy? Because you can get children that will be little chatterboxes in the house and they'll talk to anybody that comes in. But when they get outside, they seem to clam up. They lose their power of speech almost. How do you kind of like deal with that?
I mean, one of the modules on the course, when we talk about communication and conversational skills, we go through all of the topics that might be good topics of communication, like sports, hobbies. We talk about the British favourite topic, the weather. And I get the children to actually research icebreakers online, just on Google, and they come up with some questions within each category of the topics. So they're better prepared. So I think children leave my course, hopefully, feeling that the next time they're in a social situation, they're better prepared for what they can talk about. And another thing in terms of shyness, I think often children, or even as adults, we stumble if we feel that we don't have very much in common with other people. So, for example, we would discuss that if you're talking to someone that's into painting, for example, and you're not into painting, there's still a lot you can ask somebody about their hobbies and interests. And so the children will brainstorm with me, and it's very interactive. It's not just me talking at them. And they'll say, right, I could ask them, which artist do they like and who inspires them and what project are they working on? And I think it's just about giving children the tools to be confident and to have the ability to make conversation, even on topics that they don't know a lot about, and just to take an interest and have a good energy about them and be passionate.
Well, I like the fact that you enhance what is already there, Sonya. And if people are listening and they think this is right, this would be good for my child, how do they get more information?
If they can contact me on info@etiquetteandemotions.com, I'd be more than delighted to help anybody or answer any questions. That's info@etiquetteandemotions.com.
Well, listen, thank you very much for that. We will put that on our Facebook page if anybody wants to go there and check, and then they can follow the link. Sonya, it's been lovely talking to you.
Thank you. Thank you very much to you and your listeners, Caroline.
Thank you very much, Sonya. So there we are, your thoughts. Give us a call, and what do you think about the manners of today compared to yesterday? 08081 009956. I dread to think if I put one of my children in touch with her, the topic of conversation in our house is very wide-reaching. No subject is off limits, so it could make Sonya's hair curl.